A big shout out to our knowledge partners, Meraki Advisors, a real estate research and advisory firm in India. Hey guys, welcome to the RealtyLife podcast. I am Swarnima Bhavadeep, the host and founder of this podcast. Today, our guest is Ms. Sapna, who is the CEO and co-founder of Property Angel. Sapna, tell us a little bit about what Property Angel does.
Sure. So Property Angel is a second landlord platform, and we manage properties on behalf of people who don't live in the city where the property is.
Oh, lovely. Guys, stay tuned for the full-blown conversation on what this specific field is and what Sapna does. Also, please subscribe and share this video if you like it. And if there's any questions that you have post the video, we're happy to answer them. Hello, Sapna. Welcome to the RealtyLife podcast. I've been wanting to have you for a while now on the podcast because you're in such a niche space. Tell us a little bit about what your company does.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored to be here, and congratulations on launching the podcast.
Thank you.
I think the industry needs something like this, so thanks for that as well. So, at Property Angel, we call ourselves a second landlord platform. And very simply put, what we do is property management. But the term property management is overused, you know. So there are facility management companies that also call themselves property managers, and there are also transaction companies, right? Advisories. So we don't do transactions, we don't do facility management of common areas. So a JLL would do something like that.
Correct, yeah.
What we do is property management at the unit level.
Okay. So first, let's pull back a little bit. Tell me what exactly property management, the term means.
Yeah.
And then you tell us what you do.
Sure. So property management, the term as we use it, means managing a property at the unit level. So actually acting as the landlord, as a local landlord.
Okay.
Right. So there are many NRIs. There are 32 million NRIs. There are a lot of people who have properties here and live away.
True.
So in fact, 75% of our customers are NRIs, and the remaining, even another 15-20% live in different cities in India. So the way property management, the term that we use today in the industry, and there are several companies that are doing this, is the second landlord model, which is that you own a property, we would take it on as a property manager, and we would deal with the tenant and do everything that you would do if you were living locally.
Okay.
So there are three broad areas that come under this. One is the inventory management part of it. Okay, so we take on a property, we audit everything that is in the house, and we ensure that by the time we give it back to you, it's maintained in the same state. Okay, so any maintenance, any interiors, all of that comes under the inventory management aspect of it.
And this is what is already exists, or is it something you kind of add on, saying to make this property more viable, we have to add these things?
Yes, of course. Sometimes we get brand new properties that a builder has just, handed over to them, and we have to do the entire interior. So we have standards for everything. We have, like, every property needs to have certain standard fittings, because the idea is to rent it out. Right, so it has to be tenantable. So then, so we would take it on, and then when a tenant is moving in, the same inventory is given to them and said that, hey, when you leave, it needs to be given back to us in the same state. Okay, so that's the entire inventory management aspect of it. Then is the tenant management aspect, which is finding tenants, verifying them, showing them.
That's a tedious job.
Yeah, but it's okay. We've standardized everything so much that, it's just a flow. Okay. So we get tenants, you verify them, you make sure you're placing the right tenant. And then all of the paperwork, the agreements, which is all online for us now, it's all e-signed and then every 6 months checking the property, making sure that they don't have any issues. And then is the accounting and financial management part of it, which is that the rent deposit is all collected by us. We take a management fee every month, and then we pass on the rest to the property owner.
Okay, lovely. And usually when a person comes to avail your services, do they avail all these three together?
Yes, it's one service. We don't break it up. So if you come to us and say, hey, I just want to rent out, just find a tenant for me, we don't do that. If you come to us and say, I want to sell my property, we don't do that. So we have the entire set of services that we provide. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, lovely. And you said there are other players in the industry. What does Property Angel do that's, kind of an edge above the others?
Sure. So, you have you have some smaller players, and you also have really large funded players. And some of them have been in the news. Nestaway, for example, was one of them. So there are players that have really scaled up, have leveraged technology a lot. Right? But the personalization of service is missing. And then you have the smaller players where it's the opposite, right? Now, technology brings in efficiency. It brings in a lot of transparency as well.
True,
so we have an app that our customers can log into. They can see what is happening. It's not like they have to interface with anyone. But if they want to, then we have a specified, like a service manager, that they can reach out to. So when we started out, we had like a customer support team only. And we said, if you have any issues, you reach out to the customer support team and they will help you. With any problem.
On both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we had the customer support team trained in specialization. So if you have a maintenance problem, you go to this person. If you have an accounting problem, you go to this person. And then the feedback that came back was that, hey, this doesn't work. I need one person that I hope that can talk to me about any issue in my property. And then we said, okay, fine, let's just have assigned service managers by area, by zone. So now when a landlord comes to us, he knows that he can talk to this one person and he knows everything. He or she would know everything about that property.
So now they become account managers instead.
Exactly.
They hold certain accounts.
Exactly. We call them service managers.
And they are trained to handle all issues to do with that property?
Yes. But they don't do it themselves. So they are the front-facing team, right? So there's a maintenance team at the back. You have your back-end operations team, your field team, your marketing team that is finding tenants. So you have all of that, your legal team, all of that is there. But they are basically the ones that are interfacing with the customers, and they know what is going on in the property as well.
Okay, all right. In terms of the target audience, you said you have a lot of NRIs. How has it changed in the last 5-6 years? Are you seeing more, local people actually avail your services because they aren't able to handle their properties by themselves? Or what is the change in the last 5-6 years?
So I don't think too much has changed actually. I think the awareness, the fact that companies like this exist is not as much. So we have people who come into our office and say that, I wish we knew a company like yours existed. Right? So we have that as well. And in terms of NRIC, the Indians are very mobile today, right? We're all moving around, jobs are changing. So we have a lot of tenants who become landlords. We also have vice versa. Right? People want to shift locations because they want to be closer to their workplace. That is changing. Schools are changing. We have landlords who would have given us their property and would then say, okay, fine, I want to also now move into a different property and, or vice versa. We have tenants who buy properties and then, and at times they're both. We have customers who are tenants and landlords at the same time as well. So that has been changing.
Okay, that's interesting.
And
also, now I think it's if your children live elsewhere, you do that a few months where you travel to another country and come back.
Yeah, exactly. So senior citizens, that's another target audience actually. So we have quite a lot of senior citizens who've given their properties to us because they don't want to be in that position where they have to, sit and do all of these small things and interface with the tenants. They don't want to do that anymore. So
these are, what kind of properties are these? Are they just residential or is it even commercial, and are you moving into new spaces?
No, so commercial, there isn't that much of a need for property management per se, right? It's all like, they fit it out themselves. A lot of it is co-working now. So it's mostly residential. And it's all kinds. It's apartments, it's villas, independent houses. So we even have entire buildings that we manage. So it's all kinds. It's all kinds of properties.
So because you have a background in the corporate world. How has that kind of, tied into building and scaling this company?
So I guess that a lot of, my background has been technology. So that has of course helped. But it's also a lot of systems and setting up processes, managing people, Many people, because you have a service team and then you have a front-end team and and a tech team and a field team, and so it's all like So we have about 40 people right now. And there are always challenges in different ways. Different challenges that come up every day when you're running a business. I mean, you should know.
But why did you pick this space? Because, in real estate, there could be 100 different things. Why this space?
True. So, my co-founder is also my husband.
Rahul Pai, yes, we do. He's quite famous in the locality we live in now.
So, basically, he was dabbling in this. So, when I left my corporate job, I wanted to start a company and I actually actually did a tech startup first.
Okay.
And that didn't go very well. And at that time, and I remember him telling me that, you tend to stay in your comfort zone, right? So I was like, okay, this is not working. Let me change the product. And he said, you need to focus on sales and marketing, not changing the product. And so at a point, I decided, hey, this is not happening. And he was dabbling in this space a little bit. Right? He had a project management company. He had transactions that he was doing. And then he said, hey, this is interesting because people are starting to ask for this. So I said, okay, fine. Then why don't we? There was a need there. So we said, okay, let's put it together. And then one thing led to the other.
How old is the company now?
We launched this in 2014.
Okay. So it's been a solid 9-10 years.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
What are the kind of, because we don't know enough about the market, this specific market.
Yeah.
What are the kind of common perils that, because every market has some common problems. What are the problems of this?
So, challenges. So, for example, so we're dealing with a lot of semi-skilled workforce. Right? So, a tenant has our maintenance team is completely outsourced. So, we have different vendors in different locations. So, you tell a tenant that, okay, fine, our vendor will come at 10 o'clock in the morning. Getting that vendor to actually go at 10 o'clock in the morning is a challenge. Right? So just organizing an unorganized or semi-professional sort of workforce. I mean, that is one of our bigger challenges. Okay. A lot of moving parts when you're doing. So that's it. So we also kept in mind that let's scale to the extent that our customer service is maintained at certain levels. Okay. So every time we feel that, hey, there is an issue, we say, okay, let's hold on and let's see what we need to change or restructure so that we can ensure. That's the most important thing to us. Being just very, very customer focused.
Is it a case-to-case scenario, as in like each case that comes in is so different that you're like, wait, we need to customize needs accordingly?
No, not really. I think by now there's been a lot of learning and most of it is the same thing. But it's just that the way you structure the team, for example, the customer support change that I told you about, right? So first it was easier to do it in a certain way and then we said, hey, that's not working. So let's do it this way based on the feedback that we got. So things like that. Yeah.
Are there are there larger problems? Like, are there any customers who come in and who are very tough customers to handle, who have unrealistic expectations from a project manager?
For sure we've had that. So there was a time where we have bachelors who come to us and say that, I just want one room and can you find me other roommates? And we've always stayed away from that and we've said, no, we don't do that. You can form your own group and come. But even then you have cases where one person is leaving, somebody else is coming in and then they would make that arrangement amongst themselves, but they have to let us know so we can re-sign the agreement, right? But we've had multiple cases where they have fought with each other. They have disagreed about what maintenance who should pay for. And we've had a few of these fights in our office where they will come in with their parents and their boyfriends and their girlfriends and, we are just sitting and trying to figure out like, okay, how do we get past this? So we've had cases like that. We had another incident where we had a couple and I think they had a fight. And they sort of locked the husband locked the wife out of the house and the wife comes to us and says that I can't get in. So what do we do at that point in time, right? It took us some time to understand that, hey, there was an issue between them and then be sensitive to the tenants as well and be able to talk through it and, solve that and get past it.
So truly are the second landlords. Because I can't imagine anyone else doing this. I mean, even if I had a house, I feel like this is a problem that I wouldn't want to deal with.
But these are few and far between. Most of it is like very, very standard stuff that happens. But there are cases like this as well. And you have to be sensitive to the customers when this happens.
True.
So,
where do you kind of draw the line? How much hand-holding can you do and where do you draw the lines? This is about...
So the bachelor case was where we drew the line. We said, hey, this is not our thing. If you want some arbitration, we'll set that up for you. But there is only so much we can do to, kind of figure out like what's going on, why you are not talking to each other. That's not our problem. Please talk to each other and figure it out, So we can parent them to some extent, which is what we told them. But, there's a line, right? We're not your parents. You figure it out.
I mean, that's only how much you can do. You legally say, this is how much I can help you.
Exactly.
Are there any legal issues that come into play very often because you're in this space and you're, basically acting for someone else in this?
So we've had cases of maybe eviction sometimes where tenants don't vacate. We've had a few of those kind of cases, especially earlier on. Now we are very, very careful. So we know that we've learned that, okay, these are red flags. This is the sort of tenant we should not be onboarding. And that's based on various different things.
And this is based off a background check, or do you do a tenancy?
We do a background check. We do a background check. We also see how they are communicating. So we've told our team that if there is you feel there's a lot of conflict initially, then maybe this is not somebody that we want to onboard.
Okay.
So things like that. So right nowadays we don't get too many of those cases, but it used to be. We standardize, yeah, exactly, exactly.
How do you said you're dealing with semi-skilled labor?
Yeah.
What kind of effort goes into maybe upskilling them, or what are the things that your company does to maintain them?
Yeah. So we call them into the office every once a month. We have an award ceremony for them. We tell them, we just see who has done the best, and we give them awards. We train them on different things. We have an app for them. So it gives it's even a challenge to get them to use the app. Right? They will come back and say that, no, this is not working. So we used to have a problem where they would, not give us the quotes on time. So we said, okay, fine, let's give them an app. Yeah. So they can give us a quote right there and then in the property itself. Because they would wait to go back home or go to
assess it.
And go figure out a place where they have access to a laptop or a desktop somewhere where they can, create this document for us. And so we said, hey, let's just create an app that automatically does it for them. So things like that. So we have them come in and it works well. We game the system a little bit. They get points for doing the right thing.
Well, incentive.
Incentive,
It's everything, I think, with the service industry. Incentivizing anyone who's in it is essential. So you have a separate app for
the vendors.
End users and a separate app for vendors.
So we have a separate app for our agents as well, for our brokers. Because they help us find tenants as well.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So, So
how do you build that flow of tenants? Because, otherwise it's quite a tedious process to go and keep looking for every property. And if your attrition rate is high with the tenants, how do you kind of find them?
Yeah. So attrition rate is not very high actually. That's because we take groups of bachelors or we take families. Our preference is families. So our attrition is not that high. But in terms of... Sorry, I lost your question.
How do you build that pipeline?
The pipeline of tenants, right? So most of it is online. Of it is online. We have tenants that come in online through our website or through Magic. That's a solved problem, right? Magic Breaks Housing. We've partnered with them. So we get leads. We get leads through them. And the agents also. So in every location, we've built up experts. Okay. And so they get us tenants as well, and they take a commission from the other side if they are doing so. So that's how the pipeline works. So tenants is not really that much of a problem.
Other than just, of course, the problematic tenants.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's in every space we've seen some off cases.
There are some outliers,
What is the most unique one that you've dealt with?
I think this locking
career.
I think locking this house was something that
was very
that was something, right?
And even for you to step in, I think it's way past your jurisdiction to say Nice. In terms of the scale of the business, you said it's at 40 members now. Where do you think you can scale it up to and say, okay, this is where I stop at because I can only manage this much in the service industry?
So, like I said, we are scaling to the extent that we can manage the customer experience. People management is not so much of an issue. And we are also, when we scale, so we have like the same number of people managing more properties because we use a lot of technology. And that's constantly being upgraded. We're constantly automating more and more things, right? So that part is not an issue. And the way we built the culture of the organization, it's like very, very self-operational, let me put it that way.
Oh.
So it's the team that runs it, and it's very nice. It's still a small setup with 40 people, and so that's not really.
But I think 9 years in a service industry to sustain and scale is commendable. Because, I've seen a lot of startups burn out in the first 2.5 years of being in the service industry. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, especially this property management space is not easy. We've seen a lot of people try it and then say, hey, this doesn't work for us. And I think that what worked for us is the unique combination of Rahul and my real estate and technology backgrounds, right? And his very business outlook and my corporate scale outlook. So I would not worry about making money today. Yeah, they're complementary, exactly. So that helped.
Tell us a little bit about what Rahul does so that we know how this ties together.
So he's looking at more partnerships, more business expansion.
Okay.
So I look at more strategy, operations, marketing, all of that.
So you guys are married and you're basically living together and going to the office together.
So work never stops, basically. Work never stops.
How do you balance that out? Because it's hard.
No, we have to really say on multiple occasions, okay, let's not talk about work right now. And you still can't help it, it still happens, and then we're like, okay, that's it, let's not stop, you started it.
Is it a full-day job because it's service-based? Is it something that you always have to stay on for?
Not really. So we're not very, very operationally involved from that perspective. So we don't have to, but we want to. When it's your own business, you want to always be on top of things. But yeah.
I think with real estate, there is really no timings. Everyone can call at any point of the day and pick up and...
Yeah.
That's lovely. What are the future plans, say Property Angel?
So future plans, we're looking at different cities. We're looking at an affiliation, like a partnership model. When we look at the other cities, we're looking at that. We're also looking at partnerships with builders, with developers.
Okay.
So we had this recent event that we did, the Propathon event I was telling you about.
Yes, yeah.
And so with that, we've built a good relationship with the developers. And what we want to do is, and many of them have property management needs as well. Some have in fact approached us. And so that's something we want to start looking at. Can we provide property management as a service?
Okay. That's kind of inbuilt into the building itself, as in if you say builders, what kind of products are you looking at?
So we're looking at, there are many investors into these projects, right? And many of them don't live here. They want to retain their properties. And so how do they manage it?
Okay.
So the property acquisitions, these are investment properties, and you can call it investment, or you can call it NRIs who have invested now, but they eventually want to come and use it for end use, right? So what do they do in the interim? So a service for that.
A service for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's needed actually. We know a lot of NRIs. I know who will be like, here's my keys. Till I come back, please make sure it's safe and it's revenue generating.
Yeah.
How do you, this whole FD, I think, do you guys bring in more investments into your company? How do you scale?
No, we are completely bootstrapped at this point in time.
Oh, wow.
We are completely bootstrapped. And I think that's why also, see, the cash flow is okay. That's not a problem. And so we've consciously stayed away from investments. Okay, we wanted to maintain control until we were at the point where we know it's only a scale problem. Okay. Yeah. We know you can be profitable and it's only a scale problem. Yeah. And we are kind of there right now, but there's still some more work to be done.
Okay. And is this the kind of work that you want to put in before you go into other states and other places? Because then you're scaling at a level that's...
I think that's the kind of work there is. We want to see how it works in a different city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you think it'd be that different?
No, it's not going to be that different, but we just want to set up the model and make it work. I think that is what we're looking at now.
Has tenant culture changed over the years?
Tenant culture. I think the demands are a lot more.
Okay.
The quality of construction, the quality of developers, even at the mid-range, right? It's very different from how it was.
True. Yeah. And so many options now.
So many options, right? But it's still very modern.
Yeah.
And now we have apartments that were built 20, 25, 30 years ago that are not very modern, right? So the demands of tenants are like, this is not okay.
this
But
doesn't
for
fit my
us,
needs.
yeah. But for us to explain that to the landlord that, hey, we need to revamp the property, that is another challenge. Yeah.
Tricky situation.
That is. Yeah.
So you move into refurbishment also if the
we do that.
apartment needs
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
We do that.
On a day-to-day operational basis, is there some standard rule of saying, okay, this is the problem and this is what the tenant pays for, or this is what the landlord should pay
Yes,
for?
absolutely. We've completely standardized that.
Okay.
So we have a list. It's part of the agreement of both the landlord and the tenant. So they know that if there is a problem tomorrow, this is what is in my purview and this is what I will not be paying for.
Okay.
So disputes because of that are minimal today.
Yeah. The only one-off case where it's a unique.
It's a very, very unique problem. Yeah. So we keep revamping that standard as well.
Okay. So actually, everything, the agreement is quite an ironclad one. Like,
yeah, it is.
To say everything's in it.
It is. Again, that has all happened over a period of time. A lot of learnings have gone into the agreement as well.
And you failed the first few times to be aware.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the learning period like? A good first.
It's always a learning. Yeah. It's like we're still learning.
Where
but
does standardization come in?
No. But the largest learning was, of course, in the first few years, I would say. The first 2 or 3 years. But there's always learning. There's always something new to be done. There's always some restructuring, to make it better. We're constantly looking at how do we improve the customer experience.
Okay.
How do we improve it? The few things, very, very customer-centric.
So this is customer-centric as in both tenant and the landlord that you essentially are playing.
Yes. So we consider the landlords our primary customers, but we don't make any money until the tenant is there. So the way our commercials work is that we charge on the rental income. Our charges are like 9% of the rental income.
So there's no like charge as soon as you onboard?
No, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So we do the entire marketing, the inventory, all at our own cost. The fees start once a tenant is placed in the property.
Okay.
So for us, because of that, the tenant is our secondary customer, because without the tenant, there's no money.
So you could have a lot of properties in the pipeline, but till it becomes a revenue generating property.
Yes. So that's because we tell the landlord that our goal is to maximize your rental income and minimize your headaches. And so our entire model is structured around that. So if you're not making money, we are not either. Right?
I think it's a very fair thing for a company to do. I think that could be your USP too, because a lot of companies, when you go forth and say, okay, I need the service, usually an onboarding charge.
We don't charge that.
There's a waiting time for it.
You're giving us your property. Come on. I mean, the least we can do is not charge you at that point in time. So,
Sapna, we're going to shift a little focus on, in the second half of the podcast. Tell us a little bit about how your journey started in this particular space, because you went from corporate and now you started, your own company, you're in the entrepreneurship thing. What was your experience as a woman in this industry?
So I told you that when I left my corporate job, I started a tech startup. I did a tech startup for a while.
What was that?
And that was like a BNI. Do you know BNI?
Yeah.
So it was like BNI online.
Okay.
So like groups of businesses that would refer each other. Okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't really, I tried many different things. It didn't really work. And so one of the reasons I left my corporate job also was because I was like, I'm just using, I think, 10% of my acumen, right? It's a very, very narrowed sort of a growth.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I can do a lot more. And when you're in business, you're like, okay, what happened there?
You're everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Seriously, you're everything, right? Yeah. I find myself being my own chartered accountant sometimes, being my own lawyer sometimes, being my own marketing agency sometimes. And although I have service providers for all of this, you can't just give it to someone and say, okay, I don't know how to read my balance sheet or I don't know what's going on, right? I mean, you have to know everything.
Yeah, the learning curve is
huge. It's huge, right? So that was very, very exciting. Okay. And it still continues to be, right? I mean, you're always sort of pushed out of your comfort zone, and I like that. I mean, that's where growth comes from. True. And that's also where you start to realize where your own limitations are and what you need to work on.
True. Right? I mean, and everyone has that set saying, okay, I need to go past this, and if I have to upskill and learn.
Yes. And it's like you realize your limitations as well. So when your growth is like very narrowly focused, you don't know what you're missing, right? I mean, you don't know what to. So it's like marriage. When you get married, it's like a mirror in front of you, right? Like
I'm not married.
You'll know. So it's like that. Even business is somewhat like that. It's like, okay, fine. Here are all the things you're not doing so well. Fix it, right?
True.
So there's a lot of growth that happens even personally.
Yeah. In terms of, just being a woman, because they're like, 10? I can probably count on two hands how many women are actually fully involved in real estate. Was the experience any different for you when you started off? Of course, now you said it's all standardized and streamlined. But that first few customers or that first few transactions that you had to do?
So, in my entire corporate career, I've been very gender agnostic. So I'm just very unaware of the fact that I'm a woman. And many times I've been the only woman in the room, but I don't draw attention to the fact. And I think that when you don't, other people don't either. Okay, so I have just sort of like, okay, fine, that's not a problem. And
that's a fresh perspective though.
So many people ask me, and it's not like there aren't biases, I know, but I have not faced too many of them. Okay, I've not faced too many of them. And even initially, I think being a woman has a lot of advantages. Okay, when you do cold calling, which I had to do initially, people will talk to you.
Yeah.
Right? People will talk to you.
It's easy to break ice. Like that.
Even today, if I send someone a LinkedIn connection, they will probably accept it a little bit more maybe than I would if I were a man, right? Yeah. So there are advantages. So let's just focus on the bright side.
True.
So that's how I look at it.
Perspective, I must say. I might not have this back again on my podcast because not a lot of women think of this like that. Mm-hmm. Especially if they're like, in real estate, you have like 100 men in the room, but there are 2 women in the room.
Yeah.
And it's a very familial, traditional run industry. Just based on that, what would you, what are the kind of changes you'd expect to see or you want to see change in this industry?
So I think a lot of simplification. Yeah. So we say at Property Angel, we say our mission is to make real estate affairs safe, simple and efficient. Okay. So
break that down for us.
So we are doing safer and simpler. Just the whole property management aspect of it makes things simpler, a lot simpler, right? True. For both parties, for the landlord as well as for the tenants, and even safer. You now know who you're interacting with. If there's any issue, then we are there to handle it for you. Of course, things are a lot more efficient. But I think the industry as a whole can do that a lot better as well. Secondary transactions today are complex. I mean, just checking paperwork. I mean, takes a lot,
massive
right?
Task.
Yeah. All of that can be so much more simpler. We call e-stamp paper e-stamp, but it's not really e-stamp. You have to go and physically print it out, right? Yeah. Why? Why do we have to do that? So a lot of things can be a lot more simpler.
Yeah, and with tech coming in, I think it should be much faster also.
Yeah. So more transparency, more simplicity, more accountability, more standards. So all that would be good to see.
Sounds like all the qualities we should have. The next question ties into what do you bring to the table? I feel that extra edge that you bring to the table as a woman.
So I think I would say as a professional, I'm very organized. I'm good at making myself redundant. So when I started the company also, I didn't start it. I said, well, it should run whether I'm there or not. Okay. And today the business has been built like that. I mean, even if I take a month's holiday, it's okay. The company will run. It may not grow as much because that's where my focus is now, but it will run, right? So it's been built in that way. And a lot of value. So we're very, very value focused as an organization.
Okay.
Right? So our values are based on trust. So when someone is giving their property to you, the core thing is trust. I should be able to trust this company. Yeah. It's a huge investment. And so our values are based on that.
And it's hard to kind of build an organization where it's not just one person, that everyone trusts.
Yeah.
And your values kind of, dissipating into the entire organization.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a lot of trainings. Every Wednesday is a training for our staff. We have activities, we have trainings, just to sensitize them to the fact that you have to think that this is your property. You are the landlord. What would you do in that, if it was you that your money we're dealing with? you know. So, yeah. So,
What's in, I mean, how do I put this question in the right way? If you had to say take 3 or 4 months off, you're saying the company will kind of think, but what about the quality? What about those aspects? Is there someone else to handle it? Or?
no, so we have SLAs that are built into everything.
Okay.
Okay. And there are reports that are sent almost every day if there's any SLA violation. So if there's an inventory check, it has to be done within 5 days of a property handover. And everyone's watching that. The managers are watching that.
Okay.
Right? So if there's any issue, then an email gets sent out. SLA violation.
So it's
and then there are questions.
Hierarchy that's built in.
Yeah. And systems and processes that are built in. So anything that goes wrong, there's an alert. Okay, this is not, something is wrong here. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it's okay. I can take that 1 month break and things will not break. And
I think that's a luxury a lot of entrepreneurs wouldn't have built, because they need to have sole control on what is happening.
Yeah.
I think this is a new way of looking at the business.
Yeah. So Rahul would remind me of that a lot. He's like, let go. And so that's the limitation, right? I was a very controlling kind of a person.
Okay.
And then you realize that, hey, this is a limitation. I can't grow like this. I have to let go.
A hard time letting go.
I have to let go.
Yeah.
But then you build systems where that is not affecting business and it's not affecting business growth, right? And it's keeping the quality. Like everything is just the way it should be.
I just want to reflect on what you said. You said not a lot of people know that these firms exist out there that do this kind of work.
Yeah.
How do you kind of, bring in more people? How do you brand build? How do you let people know that something like this exists?
Yeah. So like I said, we had that event, for example. Yeah. That was one of our initiatives to build more of a brand.
What essentially comprise of?
Yeah. So we had customers who would tell us that, hey, they're looking to make fresh investments. So then, and many of them are NRIs, like I said. So we said, why don't we have this event online? Okay. Where they can see 3D walkthroughs, they can actually interface with the developers online, there and then, and also give them some knowledge sessions that they can understand what is happening in the industry and what they should be investing into, in which markets they should be investing into. So we had a lot of taxation, legalities, that stuff as well.
Oh, I would have loved to watch it. I'm
it's still online. You can still watch it. But so that was what the event was all about. And we keep doing things like this for brand building. You have to build your brand. I mean, you have to do that. So, and me being here is another.
Yeah, it is. I mean, everything is, I think.
Yeah.
For more people to know that, because there's so many options out there that are coming, and I think if you want to distinguish yourself as something that's different, doing something
absolutely
different, you have to brand it.
You have to.
So we're going to end this podcast, I think, with a question that I ask every guest on the podcast. If you had to imagine a fantasy plan for your company, say in 2050, what would it look like?
Well, we'd be a public company, and
I love how you started that.
And we'd be one of the largest players in India, maybe beyond. So that's how I would look at it. And we're also trying to build out the company as a platform. So many different services, and yes, so that's how I would connecting the dots. Now. Exactly.
Because you have separate, like you said, you have separate entities now doing their own work.
Yeah.
Kind of bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I'm so happy how podcast turned out. I'm so happy to have you here. Hopefully we
thank you for having
build
me
this relationship and we have more of these coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe the next Propathon can be a collaboration.
You come and speak on the next Propathon.
Hopefully I get there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.